Hello guys, especially to grade 8 and grade 9 students. I'm going to discuss with you now on how to prove triangle congruence postulates. Okay, first we have to know first why and when we can say that the two triangles are congruent. The two triangles are congruent if their corresponding sides and their corresponding angles are congruent. So we have the four postulates in order for us to determine how the two triangles are said to be congruent. So we have the side postulate, the side angle side postulate, the angle side angle postulate, and I added one postulate, the angle side postulate, because it is not included in their module, so I add it up just for us to have an understanding or information about the angle side postulate. Now to understand this postulate, I will show it to you in the figure. So we have so we are going to use the side postulate. So if I'm going to name this triangle as triangle A, B, C, and this triangle as D, E, F. So if AB, segment AB correspond to segment DE, therefore AB is congruent to DE. If segment BC correspond to segment EF, therefore BC is congruent to EF. If AC, segment AC correspond to segment DF, therefore segment AC is congruent to segment DF. So it is how we show the side postulate. Now the side postulate states that if the three sides of one triangle are congruent respectively to the corresponding three sides of another triangle, then the two triangles are congruent. Next, we have the side, angle, side. So we are going to use these two triangles. So if I'm going to name this one triangle as triangle MNO, and this triangle as BQR. So if segment MN correspond to segment PQ, therefore segment MN is congruent to segment PQ. And if angle N corresponds to angle Q, therefore angle N is congruent to angle Q. And if segment NO corresponds to segment QR, therefore segment NO is congruent to segment QR. So therefore that is side, this side, angle, this angle, and side, this side. So that is side, angle, side. And take note that the angle in the side, angle, side is the included angle. It is the angle that is in between the two given sides. And the side angle side postulate states that if the two sides and the included angle of one triangle are congruent respectively to the corresponding two sides and the included angle of another triangle, then the two triangles are congruent. Next is we have the angle, side, angle. So if I'm going to divide this angle congruently into two congruent triangles, and I name it as A, B, C, D. Now if angle A corresponds to angle C, therefore angle A is congruent to angle C. If side AD corresponds to side CD, therefore side AD is congruent to side CD. And if angle ADB, this angle, corresponds to angle CDB, this angle, therefore angle ADB, this angle, is congruent to angle CDB, this angle. And take note again that the side in angle side angle postulate, it is the included side. It is the side in between the two given sides. So that is angle, this angle, side, this side, angle, this angle. And the angle side angle postulate states that if the two angles and the included side of one triangle are congruent respectively to the corresponding two angles and the included side of another triangle, then the two triangles are congruent. Now, the fourth postulate that I have added will be discussed in the later part of this discussion because it is not included in the module. I just add it up in order for us to have a knowledge on how to prove an angle side postulate. So we are going to apply this. We are going now to prove this postulate. Now, what we're given, triangle ABC is an isosceles triangle. D is the midpoint of segment AC, and we are going to prove that triangle ADB is congruent to triangle CDB. So, first, we are going to have a two-column proof. This is for our statement, and this is for our reason. So the first statement must be the one in the given. So what is it? That is triangle ABC is an isosceles triangle. So that is our first statement. Triangle ABC, so triangle ABC is an isosceles triangle. So our reason must be given. Okay, next for the 2. So for the reason for our answer for reason 2, we can anticipate it because we have the term isosceles triangle. So therefore, our answer for reason 2 must be definition of isosceles triangle. And what is an isosceles triangle? Isosceles triangle is a triangle whose two sides are congruent. So therefore, in your statement, you are going to write the two sides of the isosceles triangle that are congruent. So what are those two sides? So that is side AB must be congruent to side CB. So that is AB must be congruent to side CB. So that is segment AB must be congruent to segment CB. So that is the definition of an isosceles triangle, that the two sides of a triangle are congruent. So for number 3, our statement for number 3 must be D is the midpoint of segment AC. So that is D is the midpoint of segment AC. So that is given. 4. For the reason number 4, you can anticipate it. Our answer must be because we have the term midpoint. So therefore, your reason for number 4 must be definition of midpoint. And what is the role of the midpoint? A midpoint is a point that divides the segment into two congruent segments. So therefore, in your statement number 4, you have to state the two segments that are congruent. What are those? So that those are segment AD must be congruent to segment CD. So that is AD. So that is segment AD must be congruent to segment CD. Okay, for number 5, you can state you are going to connect point B to point D. So we are going to draw segment BD. Okay? So we have draw segment BD. So what would be our reason? 2 points determine a line. Okay, and number 6 now, you can state that BD, this segment is congruent to itself. Why? Because BD is the segment of this triangle, and at the same time, it is the segment of this triangle. So that is, BD is congruent to itself. So we can have BD, so BD, segment BD is congruent to segment BD. And what would be our reason? That is reflexive property. And your last statement must be the one that what we are going supposed to prove. So what is it? So our last statement must be triangle ADB is congruent to triangle CDB. So ADB, so that is triangle ADB. So triangle ADB must be congruent to triangle CDB. And what would be our reason? So our reason must be this side is congruent to this side is congruent to this side, and this side is congruent to itself. So it is side, side, side. So that is number 7, reason is side, side, side postulate. Okay, next. So we're given triangle ABC is an equilateral triangle. BD bisects segment AC, and we are going to prove that triangle ADB is congruent to triangle CDB. Again, we are going to have a 2-column proof. And this is for the statement for reason. Statement number 1. Statement number 1 must be triangle ABC is an equilateral triangle. So that is triangle ABC. Triangle ABC is an equilateral triangle. So that is given. Okay, number 2. For the reason number 2, you can anticipate your answer because you have the term in your first statement, equilateral triangle. So therefore, your reason must be definition of equilateral triangle. So what is an equilateral triangle? An equilateral triangle is a triangle with 3 congruent sides. And what are those sides? So in your statement, you are going to state the 3 sides that are congruent. And what are those 3 sides? That is, side AB must be congruent to side BC. And it must be congruent to side CE. So the 3 sides are congruent. So that is, segment AB must be congruent to segment BC, must be congruent to segment CA. So that is the definition of an equilateral, that the 3 sides of the triangle must be congruent. Next, BD bisect AC. So that is BD bisect AC. So BD, segment BD bisect segment BD bisect AC. Bisect segment AC. Reason, given. So number 4. So the reason for number 4 can be anticipated because we have the word bisect. And segment BD bisect segment AC. So therefore, BD segment BD now is a segment bisector. So you are now going to have your reason for number 4, definition of segment definition of segment definition segment bisector. Okay, definition of segment bisector. So, what is the role of the segment bisector? It divides the segment into two congruent segments. So, therefore, in your statement for number 4, you are going to state the two segments that are congruent. So, what are those? So, those are the segment AD must be congruent to segment DC. So, that is AD to CD. So, that is segment AD to segment AD must be congruent to segment CD. So number 5, you can now say that segment BD is congruent to segment BD because this segment is the segment of this side and it is also the side of this triangle. So that is BD is congruent to itself. So that is BD, segment BD is congruent to segment BD. And what is our reason? That is reflexive property. So after reflexive property, the last statement must be the one that we are going to prove. And what is it? The statement is triangle ADB is congruent to triangle CDB. So triangle ADB 6. So triangle ADB must be congruent to triangle CDB. And what would be our reason? So our reason is this side is congruent to this side is congruent to this side, and this side is congruent to itself. So side, side, side. So we have the side, side, side congruence. So we have the side, side, side postulate. Okay, next. We have triangle PQR is an isosceles triangle. QS bisect angle Q, and we are going to prove that triangle PQS is congruent to triangle RQS. So again, we are going to have a 2-column proof. And this is for our statement. This is for our reason. So our first statement must be the one in the statement. So our first statement must be the one in the given. So our first statement must be triangle PQR is an isosceles triangle. So triangle PQR. So that is triangle PQR so triangle PQR is an isosceles triangle. So that is given. Next, number 2. We have, so for the reason number 2, you can anticipate your answer because we have the isosceles triangle. Therefore, your reason for number 2 must be definition of isosceles triangle. And what is an isosceles triangle? An isosceles triangle is triangle with two congruent sides. So therefore, in your statement number 2, you are going to state the two sides that are congruent. So that is, side PQ must be congruent to side RQ. So that is PQ to RQ. So that is side PQ must be congruent to side, what's the other one? RQ. R segment RQ. So next, number 3. So we have QS bisect angle Q. So our next statement is QS segment QS bisect angle Q. So QS, this is the QS bisect angle Q into two congruent angles. So QS bisect angle Q. So segment QS bisect angle Q. So that is given. 4. You have the word bisect, and Q is served as a bisector. And what it bisected? It bisected angle Q. Therefore, segment Q is now served as an angle bisector. So therefore, the reason for number 4 must be definition of angle bisector. So, and what is the role of the angle bisector? It divides the angle into two congruent angles. So therefore, in your statement number 4, you are going to state the two angles that are being bisected by the angle bisector, and they must be congruent. So what are those angles? So that is angle, this angle. So PQS and RQS must be congruent. So that is angle PQS. So angle PQS. So angle PQS must be congruent to angle. So what is the other angle? RQS. So that is angle RQS. Okay, 5. Next, you can now have QS is congruent to QS. So that is this side. QS, this side, is congruent to itself because this QS is the side of this triangle, and at the same time, it is the side of this triangle. So QS is congruent to itself. So that is QS. So segment QS is congruent to segment QS. So what is our reason? Our reason is reflexive property. So after reflexive property, the last statement must be the one that we are going to prove. So that is triangle PQS is congruent to triangle RQS. So PQS. So PQS. So that is triangle PQS must be congruent to triangle RQS. So what would be our reason? Our reason is this side is congruent to this side, this angle is congruent to this angle, and this side is congruent to side. So that is side angle side. So that is side, angle side. So number 6. So that is side, angle side postulate. Okay, next. Okay, we're given segment AB and segment DC are perpendicular to BC and AB is congruent to DC. We are going to prove that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DBC. So again, we are going to have a two-column proof. So this is for our statement. This is for our reason. Statement number 1 must be the one in the given. So what is in the given? AB and DC are perpendicular to BC, to AB, DC. So that is AB and DC are perpendicular to BC. Let me check. Okay, AB and DC. AB and DC perpendicular, so that is given. Okay, statement number 2, reason number 2. Reason number 2 can be anticipated. You have the word perpendicular. So therefore, the reason must be definition of perpendicular lines. So how would we know that the two lines are perpendicular? The two lines are perpendicular if they form two right angles. So therefore, in your statement for number 2, you are going to state the two right angles being formed by perpendicular lines. So what are those lines? What are those angles? So that is angle B and angle C. So angle B and angle C. So that is angle B and angle C are so angle B and B and angle C are right angles. Okay. So for statement number 3, you can say now that angle B is congruent to angle C. Okay, angle C. So what would be our reason? All right angles. So all right angles are congruent. So all right angles are congruent. So number 4. So AB is congruent to DC. So AB. So segment AB is congruent to segment DC. That is given. So that is AB is congruent to DC. Now you can state that segment BC is congruent to segment BC because this segment is the part of this triangle and this segment is also a part of this triangle. So that is BC is congruent to itself. So that is BC. So number 5, BC is congruent to segment BC. What is our reason? Our reason is reflexive property. And number 6, the one that we are going to prove is triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DCB. So triangle ABC. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle. So what triangle? DCB. 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 And what would be our reason? So our reason is this side is congruent to this side. This angle is congruent to this angle. This side is congruent to itself. So side, angle, side. So that is side, angle, side. So side, angle, side, postulate. Okay. Next, okay. AB and CD are perpendicular to BD. E is the midpoint of BD. You are going to prove that triangle BEA is congruent to triangle DEC. So again, we are going to have a two-column proof. This is for our statement, for our reason. So the first statement must be the one in the given. So what is it? So the one in the given is AB and CD are perpendicular to BD. So AB, CD. So that is AB and CD are perpendicular to BD. Let me check. AB and CD perpendicular to BD. Okay. So the reason is given. Okay, number 2, we have the term perpendicular. So therefore, you can anticipate your reason for number 2 to be definition of perpendicular lines. So how would we know that the two lines are perpendicular? Two lines are perpendicular if they form two right angles. Therefore, in your statement number 2, you are going to state the two right angles being formed by perpendicular lines. So what are those? Angle B, so that is angle B and angle D. So angle B, so angle B and angle D are right angles. Okay. So now for your statement number 3, you can say that angle B angle B is congruent to angle D. So what would be our reason? All right angles are congruent. Okay, number 4. So we have now E is the midpoint. So our next statement is E is the midpoint of BD. So A is the midpoint of BD. So E, midpoint of segment BD. So our reason is given. Number 5. So for number 5 reason, you can anticipate your answer because we have the midpoint. So that is now the reason is definition of midpoint. And what is the role of the midpoint? It divides the segment into two congruent segments. So you are going to state in your statement the two segments that are congruent. And what are those? So that is segment BE, this segment must be congruent to segment DE. So BE and DE. So that is segment BE must be congruent to segment DE. Okay, so number 6. So you can have now angle BEA. So angle BEA. So angle BEA and angle DEC, angle DEC, and angle DEC are vertical angles. So how would we know that that angle BEA and angle DEC are vertical angles? So intersecting lines form vertical angles. Okay, now so you can say that number 7, angle BEA is congruent to angle DEC. So what is the reason? Vertical angles are congruent. Okay, last for number 8, you have the last statement must be the one that we are going to prove. So we have now said that this angle BEE, is congruent to angle DEC. Vertical angles are congruent. So we are now going to state that triangle BEA is congruent to triangle DEC. So that is triangle. So let's have it here. So triangle so we can have triangle so let's erase. So triangle BEA is congruent to triangle DEC, and that is side angle. So we have angle, side angle. So we have angle, side angle postulate. Next, so we have BD bisect angle B and is perpendicular to AC. We are going to prove that triangle ADB is congruent to triangle CDB. So first, we are going to have a 2-column proof. Statement for reason. So statement number 1. So our statement number 1 must be BD bisect angle B. So BD bisect angle B. So BD, segment BD bisect angle B. So that is given. Number 2, you can anticipate your answer for the reason number 2 because we have the word bisect. So therefore, the answer for number 2, the reason must be, and BD is served now as angle bisector because it bisected angle B. So that is definition of angle bisector. So definition of angle bisector. Now what is the role of angle bisector? It divides the angle into 2 congruent angles. So therefore you are going to state in your statement the 2 angles that are congruent. So that is angle So that would be angle ABD. So this angle and this angle ABD. So angle ABD. So angle ABD is congruent to angle. So what is the other angle? CBD. So that is CBD. CBD. So next statement. So our next statement must be BD is perpendicular to AC. So BD is perpendicular to AC. So BD is perpendicular to AC. So our reason is given. For the answer reason number 4, you can anticipate your answer because you have the term perpendicular. So meaning the reason must be definition of perpendicular lines. And then how did we know that the two lines are perpendicular? Two lines are perpendicular if they form two right angles. Therefore, in our statement number 4, we are going to state the two right angles being formed by perpendicular lines. So they are angle ADB. ADB, this angle, and this angle ADB. So that is angle ADB. So angle ADB and angle, what is the other angle? CDB. So that is CDB, DB are right angles. So you can now say that angle ADB is congruent to angle CDB. Why? What would be our reason? All right angles are congruent. All right angles are congruent. So next, we can now say that BD is congruent to BD. So this segment BD is congruent to BD because he is the side of this triangle and at the same time he is the side of this triangle. So he is congruent to itself. So BD is congruent to BD. So that is segment BD. BD is congruent to BD. And our reason would be reflexive property. So number 7, the last statement must be the one that we are going to prove, that it is triangle ADB must be congruent to triangle CDB. So ADB, so triangle ADB must be congruent to triangle CDB. So what would be our reason? Our reason is angle. This angle is congruent to this angle. This angle is congruent to this angle. This side is congruent to this side. And this angle is congruent to this angle. So that is angle side angle. So that is angle side angle. So that is angle side angle postulate. Okay, next. So we're given angle O is congruent to angle Q and segment PR is perpendicular to segment OQ. We are going to prove that triangle ORP is congruent to triangle QRP. So we are going to have a 2-column proof again. So this is for our statement, for our reason. Statement number 1 would be, so our reason number 1 is angle O is congruent to angle Q. So angle O is congruent to angle Q. So our reason is given. Okay, number 2. Number 2, PR is perpendicular to OQ. So PR is perpendicular to OQ. So PR is perpendicular to segment OQ. That is given. 3. Reason number 3, you can anticipate, you have the word perpendicular. So therefore, this is definition of perpendicular line. So how did we know that two lines are perpendicular? Two lines are perpendicular if they form two right angles. Therefore, in our statement number 3, you are going to state the two right angles being formed by the two perpendicular lines. So what are those angles? That is angle ORP and angle QRP. So ORP. So angle ORP and angle ORP and angle, so what is the other angle? Angle ORP and angle QRP. So angle QRP, QRP are right angles. So you can now state that angle ORP is congruent to angle QRP. Why? Because all right angles are congruent. So we have angle O is congruent to angle Q. So we have segment PR is congruent to segment PR. So we can say that number 5, segment PR is congruent to segment PR. And our reason is reflexive property. So the last statement must be the one that we are going to prove. That is angle ORP, triangle ORP is congruent to triangle QRP. So ORP. So triangle ORP. So triangle ORP is congruent to triangle QRP. So what is our reason? Our reason is angle, this angle, this angle, this angle, and this side. So angle, angle, side. So that is number 6. That is angle, angle, side, postulate. This is the one that I have added in the fourth postulate. Okay? Thank you very much. And I hope that this video or this lesson of mine have added some knowledge on how to prove triangle congruence postulate. Thank you very much and have a nice day.